for you this morning 8 stories. That's all. Just stories. Story number 1. A long, long time ago, there's a group of disciples gathered. They were gathered on a beach. And they were gathered on a beach because they were trying to figure out what to do next. Where were they going to go? What were they going to do now that their leader and mentor was gone? So, some of them decided to go back and do what they were most comfortable doing, fishing. And so they went out onto the boat and they tried to fish. And all night, they caught nothing. All night, they threw the net off the same side of the boat and the same result. No fish in the net. And eventually, a stranger appeared on shore. It was water. They could see the stranger. They could hear it. It was good enough. And the stranger said, "Try fishing on the other side. Take out your net from the side you're on and put it on the other side." So the disciples picked up their nets, threw them off on the other side, and the net was full. Now, a simple act of letting go changed their entire fishing experience. What are we being asked to let go of? Story number 2. Once upon a time, there was a church that ran an Out of the Cold program. An Out of the Cold program cares for people who have no place to sleep when it is frigid temperatures outside. And so, on some nights, this church would have 60 or 80 people sleep on the floor of its gymnasium. Volunteers would come and they would serve hot meals at night and hot breakfasts in the morning. It was good. But what was even better was at night the volunteers would stay and play cards, do puzzles, and have good conversations. And there was one man in particular. His name was Wally. He didn't speak much. In fact, he barely spoke to anyone. But a few people knew his story. Wally, at one point in his life, was a very happy man. He was married to the person he loved most dearly in the world. And Wally and his wife taught piano lessons, and they were so happy. And then one day, there was a car accident. Wally's wife died, and Wally was broken. And yet the few times that Wally did speak, it was often with his fingers on the piano. He would go to the piano in the old gymnasium, and he would play for hours. And when we hear the story of Wally, all our impressions about people who are homeless, we're invited to let go of those and to pick up something new. Story number 3. A long, long time ago, there was a woman. She had a baby, a beautiful baby that she loved very much. But only 3 days into its life, it died. And this woman was so taken with grief, she bound the baby to her, and she went to everyone she knew asking if they could bring her baby back to life. She went to witches, she went to healers, she went to priests, and no one could bring her baby back. But one person said, I've heard that up on the mountain, there's a little lake with a stream that runs out of it, and beside that lake is a man. He lives in a small, decrepit cabin, and I've heard that he can do what you ask. So this woman takes her baby, still strapped to her, and walks up the mountain and looks for this lake with the little stream going beside it and a decrepit house, and she finds it, and she knocks on the door, and the man says, "I think I can help you, But first, you must go down from the mountain, and you must bring me back a handful of mustard seeds from a family that has not experienced grief or darkness." So she goes down from the mountain, and she knocks on every single door that she can find. She asks if the family has ever experienced grief and pain and darkness. She finds not a single family that is free from those things. But in the process of having those conversations, she eventually thinks it's okay to let her baby go. And in letting her baby go, there might be transformation. This one you might know. Long time ago, there were two people. One was named Della. One was named Jim. Della had the most beautiful hair in the world. Jim had a pocket watch that would make King Solomon blush. It was Christmas Eve, and these two wanted more than anything to give their love of their life a gift. Della went out. She had no money. So she went to somebody who bought hair to make wigs, and she sold her hair to buy a chain for Jim's pocket watch. And Jim, well, he went out and he sold his watch to buy a set of combs for Della's hair. In the letting go, may there be transformation. Story number 5. At one point in time, a long time ago, there was a boy who was walking on the beach, and this boy saw a seashell that he thought was so beautiful. So he picked up the seashell and he examined it, and he wanted to understand its beauty. He wanted to hold on to that beauty. And then he saw another shell. So he picked up the shell and he held it too. And then he saw another one, and then he saw a piece of driftwood that was sculpted so beautifully by the wind and the sand and the waves. And so he held it, and eventually his hands were full of these things that he thought were beautiful. And then he saw a starfish. And he wanted this even more than any of the other things. But when he tried to pick it up, he couldn't, because his hands were too full of these other things he'd collected. Sometimes we need to let go. United Church of Canada is dying. That's the prime narrative that we have. It's story number 6. The United Church, for a long time, was the prime Protestant denomination in Canada. But its story over the last 50 years has been one of decline. No longer is it the place that everyone goes to. No longer can the moderator of the United Church of Canada pick up the phone and call the Prime Minister of Canada and have their voice heard. And so, in a few months, delegates from all over the country are going to meet in Newfoundland. They're going to explore a report called Fishing on the Other Side, interestingly enough. And they're going to need to let go of a lot of things. Ways of doing church, institutions that we cling to. Story number 7. A long time ago, there was a family, an old woman and an old man who had lived very, very long lives. They were healthy for the most part and happy for the most part. And they lived in a house. And they loved their house, and some of their children had grown up in the house. But they lost their ability to drive, and their health deteriorated a little bit. And soon, the house became a lonely place. But eventually, they made the decision to move to an apartment. To move to an apartment where meals would be provided and there would be people to help care for their place. So they did. And in that, new life was born. When they let go of something old, they could pick up something new. And finally, story number 8. Last week I showed you a story, and this week another story from the same group, just different people. In it, you'll meet Josh and his mom, Sarah. Josh has Asperger's syndrome. He has trouble fitting in. Sarah is the mom who's trying to be a loving parent. If you will, listen for the story of transformation that Sarah has as she parents Josh.
From a scale of 1 to 10, do you think your life would be different without animals?
I think it would be an 8 without animals because they add so much pleasure to life.
How else do you think your life would be different without them?
I could do without things like cockroaches and snakes.
Well, I'm okay with snakes as long as they're not venomous or can constrict you or anything.
Yeah, I'm not a big snake person.
But cockroach is just the insect we love to hate.
Yeah, it really is.
Have you ever felt like life is hopeless?
When I was a teenager, I was very depressed. And I think that can be quite common with teenagers who think a lot, and are perceptive.
Am I like that?
You were very much like that.
Do you have any mortal enemies?
I would say my worst enemy is sometimes myself, but I don't think I have any mortal enemies.
Have you ever lied to me?
I probably have, but I try not to lie to you, even though sometimes the questions you ask make me uncomfortable.
Like when we go on our walks, some of the questions I might ask.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel it's really special that you and I can have those kind of talks, even if sometimes I feel myself blushing a little bit.
Have you ever thought you couldn't cope with having a child?
I remember when you were a baby, you had really bad colic, so you would just cry and cry. And
What's
I didn't know
colic?
It's when you get this stomach ache and all you do is scream for like 4 hours
Even
a night.
louder than Amy does?
You were pretty loud, but Amy's was more high-pitched.
I think it feels like everyone seems to like Amy more, like she's like the perfect little angel.
Well, I can understand why you think that people like Amy more, and I'm not saying it's because of your Asperger's syndrome, but being friendly comes easily to Amy. Whereas I think for you, it's more difficult. But the people who take the time to get to know you love you so much.
Like Ben or Eric or Carlos.
Yeah, and
like I have better quality friends, but less quantity.
I wouldn't judge the quality, but I think...
I mean, like, first it was like Amy loved Claudia, then she hated Claudia, she loved Claudia, then she hated Claudia.
Part of that's a girl thing, honey. The important thing for you is that you have a few very good friends, and really that's what you need in life.
Did I turn out to be the son you wanted when I was born? Like, did I meet your expectations?
You've exceeded my expectations, sweetie. Because, sure, you have these fantasies of what your child's going to be like, but you have made me grow so much as a parent. Because you think...
Well, I was the one who made you a parent.
You were the one who made me a parent. That's a good point. But also, because you think differently from, what they tell you in the parenting books.
Yeah.
I really had to learn to think out of the box with you. And it's made me much more creative as a parent and as a person. And I'll always thank you for that.
And that helped when Amy was born?
And that helped when Amy was born. But you were just so incredibly special to me. And I'm so lucky to have you as my son.
So when Sarah had all these perceptions about what her baby would be, when she let them go, new life, transformation could happen. So I'll leave you with this question. What do you need to let go of? Maybe you need to let go of a perception that you have of yourself. Maybe you need to let go of a relationship. Maybe you need to let go of an attitude towards somebody. Maybe you need to let go of a thing or an object. Maybe you need to let go of a routine that's harming you. But what do you need to let go of?